was there to speak, and we have our own here, beat reporter Broder.
That's me.
To be able to kind of, he was at Allen Park today. He was there. He would listen to who all spoke? Brian Branch, Dan Campbell,
and Frank Ragnow.
So he was there to kind of talk about that. So we're going to kind of get into some things with that's the one advantage I think we have here is you're in Allen Park during the days, and we get to do the show at night. So we're able to kind of talk about it. You guys can listen. And again, welcome in. And if you guys can real quick, smash that like button before we get into here about Dan Campbell. But Broder.
Yes.
One thing that stood out to me in this press conference is Dan Campbell talking about the Seattle game, the energy in the building that's going to be at Ford Field.
Yes.
And Jalen, I don't know if we have that clip. We'll see if this clip plays. But here's Dan Campbell talking about how he feels like. Yes, the first clip, the shorter one here, but about what he feels like Ford Field will be like versus the Seattle Seahawks on Sunday.
I'm expecting it to be loud. I'm expecting, I know what Arrowhead is, and it was loud. I expect it to be louder than that. I really do. I just know our fans. I mean, and it's going to be, it'll be to the point where you can't hear yourself think. So, for them anyway.
Yeah, and Dan Campbell continued on with that, and he talked about his first time playing at Ford Field in 2006. I believe he was he a member of the Seattle Seahawks, or they were playing the Seattle Seahawks? I think he was playing, and he just talked about how loud it can get and how it surprised him the first time he went in there, and that each time he's in there again, the crowd just continues to impress him. And with all the hype going into the Chiefs game, going into the Chiefs environment, and then coming out victorious, he knows that Ford Field is going to absolutely explode.
And I would have to think, too, that this might be one of the most, especially for, like, the One Pride Nation, the fans, it has to be, like, the most anticipated Detroit Lions home game, at least that I can remember going into it. You're 1-0, you just beat the defending champs, the Chiefs. You're a top 3 team in the NFC, which we'll get into later today, and you're about to play the Seattle Seahawks, who last year took your last playoff spot. I can't imagine. I feel like this is the most anticipated Lions home game that we've had in who knows when. I can't tell you.
Probably 30 years.
I don't even think I'm old enough to know that. So I do think what Dan Campbell said, the sound, like how loud it's going to be in there, that's a legit competitive advantage.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that is legit. It's like the 12th man years ago with the Seattle Seahawks. It's going to be like that at Ford Field all year this year. And I know there's people in the chat right now that probably will be at the game, and it is going to be like, I'm pumped. We're going to be doing the stream here. I wish I could be at Ford Field. It's going to be insane. Downtown Detroit, the chance for the Detroit Lions to go 2-0 versus a team that knocked them out of the playoffs.
Yeah, dude. And they came in, and that was a game where we weren't able to force one punt out of Seattle.
Yes, it was just an offensive game.
Geno Smith played well, and Seattle's continued to reload. I know Jackson Smith and Jigba and Devon Witherspoon, their first-round picks, they've been a little hampered, but it seems like they're going to play. They got the type of team, the roster construction that I thought could compete, could take it deep into the playoffs, maybe even be one of those dark horses to make a Super Bowl run.
Yep.
But they didn't look like that this past weekend. So hopefully, I mean, that doesn't affect the crowd. The crowd's going to be absolutely insane regardless. But the storylines surrounding this game just continue to grow.
Yeah, I kind of expect the fans to hopefully come there and make some noise. But I do expect the Detroit Lions to come in and win this game now.
I think so, too.
Especially after seeing the Seahawks. And I know you could say, they're going to have a bounce-back game. I don't care, to be honest. I don't care about these bounce-back games. But one thing, too, this last week that I think has turned into an advantage with the Detroit Lions, and this is kind of the next video here, Broder, of the press conference you were at, is Dan Campbell's play calling, and kind of in these big situations, those fourth downs, those big, massive situations. I know last week before the game, I brought up the point of Dan Campbell versus Andy Reid, and Dan Campbell just can't mess the game up, and he went through it. They went for it on a couple fourth downs, and Jalen, if you want to play that second video of Dan Campbell talking about what it means to him, or kind of he
was asked, like, the plays worked out well, but if they didn't go in his favor, he was probably going to get some serious criticism.
It's that Dan Campbell, that heart.
Yeah, and this is how he answered it.
I guess making the right call ultimately. I mean, nobody's really talked that much about how decisive that was, but how you were right.
No, I don't. No, believe me, I don't. I don't need anything. We got a W, and look, I can make all the wrong decisions, and we win, I'm all good. I'll take it. So, you know, we did a lot of things right. Our players, look, we say it all the time, no matter what call comes out of it, you're making that call because you're leaning on a certain group, you know, offense, defense, special teams, and you're trusting those guys in the moment. And if something doesn't work out, then those guys will bail you out. And we got to do our job for them too, and give them the best game plan we can. But no, listen, you call the game as you see it, and what you feel like is the right thing in the moment, and you go with it.
Nick, do you have a siren noise on that board?
Like a breaking news?
I don't know.
Because
I'm gonna
we
have to look for that one.
All right, look for it real quick.
Breaking news.
We
Yeah.
have some breaking
Breaking
news.
news.
Zach Wilson has entered the game with 10 minutes and 34 seconds left.
Have we ever seen, outside of last year when that Jordan Love came, like, I've never seen Aaron Rodgers get hurt. Like, actually, to where,
Not that I can. He's had some nagging. It was a toe, a thumb, but Aaron Rodgers just was helped off the field by trainers and
Wow.
with an apparent lower leg injury. Now we got Zach Wilson.
Imagine this. Zach Wilson goes
Wow.
in, Aaron Rodgers down, and Zach Wilson just ends up being their starter. Like, just an insane, like,
And then
storyline.
kills it,
And just
then
goes
just
off.
absolutely just takes over the league, comeback player of the year.
Jets fans would be, they would be pissed.
That would be
I feel
nuts.
like they would be.
That would be nuts. But Dan Campbell.
Yeah,
we
let's get back into this.
We just saw that press conference. He was talking about his decisions on fourth down with special teams, and one of the things I took from that the full conversation that he had, he was talking about when he had his opportunity to be the head coach in Miami. He remembers leaving and thinking that he didn't utilize his special teams enough.
Yeah.
Like, he wants special teams to be a weapon, and sometimes that can come back to haunt you, but he's aggressive and he wants to take those chances. There's great players that he has on his special teams unit, and even if we're talking fourth downs and making some aggressive play calls, these are all things they plan for. They talk about situations in advance, and they had talked about that the fourth down call early. He and Dave Phipp, not the fourth down call, excuse me, the fake punt where Jalen Reeves-Maybin caught the direct snap and took it, I think, 2 yards for the first down. They prepared for that. They talked about what if they got in a scenario, and he and Dave Phipp, the special teams coach, they were all prepared and ready to go. And you can tell from that clip, he could care less what criticism he gets from different calls as long as they win a game.
Which I love that.
Me too.
There's a few things too with that. The number one thing that tells me though is that he trusts the team.
Yes.
And as a, you're trying to build something, you're trying to build a franchise, a winning franchise. Andy Reid trusts his players. Sean McDermott trusts his players. Like these guys that have, these franchises that build something, they trust their players. And like that fourth down at the end of the game in the fourth quarter, when it was a make or break, like you have to get that fourth down, or you give Patrick Mahomes the ball back with 40 or 55 yards to go or 30 yards to get a field goal. He trusts his defense and offense in that.
Yes.
One, he goes for it in 4th and 2 to put the game out of hand, and he trusts his offense to go get that. And two, he knows if he doesn't get this, he can trust his defense to get the stop. I love it.
That's where things are different.
Yes. And a lot of people, the criticizing thing, the criticism. A lot of people will try and go at Dan Campbell for that if you don't get it, or it's so easy to criticize. But when things work out the way that they did last week, and they did when we went 8-2, or the Detroit Lions went 8-2 to end the season last year, and he was going for those fourth downs, he knows what he's doing. And as much as some of us might hate it, and some of us are like, dude, stop doing that. Eventually it's going to bite us in the ass. Who cares, dude? Let him coach his game.
Exactly.
And he trusts it. Like he said, in Miami, he wanted to do that, and he regretted not doing it. Now he's doing it, and now he's winning.
Let him cook.
Let him cook.
Let the man cook.
Do you ever watch the quarterback show on Netflix?
I saw some of it. I saw a couple episodes.
There was one, just the one thing I remember from it. They're showing Kansas City Chiefs and how Andy Reid trusts. You were talking about him trusting his team. He lets Patrick Mahomes and the offense come up with plays in the offseason.
Yes.
Lets them get creative and excited. And that's part of how he connects with his teams. That's part of why they like playing for him and why they work hard for him.
He's a football guy. I don't
Yeah.
know if you heard the story of Andy Reid, that Andy Reid got a play in Green Bay from one of the janitors in Green Bay.
No way.
A janitor came up to him. He just told the story a couple weeks ago, actually. A janitor in Green Bay came up to him and said, "Hey, I've got this play. This will work." And he looked at it and he was like, "Well, that's pretty good."
Did he ever
And then
run
they
it?
used it, and they scored a touchdown on it. And he was like, so Andy Reid, it's the same thing with Dan Campbell. It's like, hey, it's football. Like, one, we're going to trust you guys, but two, it's like these fourth downs, like the punt, the fake punt. Like, hey, if we find a play here, well, we're going to take any play. And that's kind of what great coaches do. They've always done that. And Dan Campbell seems to have, like, adapted that. I don't know. It's like, I call it the affinity rings. You know?
The affinity rings, all right.
Yeah, I call it for everything though. I'm missing an infinity ring here at Woodward. That's the technology side of things.
It happens. But Ben Johnson also talked recently about getting a play from one of the referees in their joint scrimmage against the Giants and Jaguars, and I can't remember if he said he used it or not, but he was like, "Hey, this is pretty good." Someone had asked him the craziest way he had received a play or stolen a play from someone else, so that's pretty interesting.